Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're digging into something really fundamental, something you do all the time, but maybe don't think about how it happens, how you actually learn a skill.
Right. Not just what you learn, but the deep cognitive shifts that happen inside your brain.
Exactly. Going from being a complete beginner, totally fumbling, to someone who can do it smoothly, almost without thinking. And this comes from some great material someone, maybe it was you, send over. It's a really detailed look at the cognitive processes behind skill learning.
Yeah, it's packed with stuff that can honestly change how you approach learning or teaching for that matter.
So let's quickly define skill here. The material says it's basically a learned ability to get results effectively. Could be physical, like tennis, or mental, like coding.
Mm-hmm. It's about doing it well, efficiently, not just doing it. And learning is this fundamental rewiring process.
We're going to focus on the big four cognitive processes the material highlights: attention, perception, memory, and decision-making.
And the key thing is they don't work alone, right? They're like a team, constantly interacting.
Totally. So our mission today is to walk you through that journey, novice to expert, but seeing it through this lens, these mental operations. Hopefully you'll get the why behind your own learning curve.
And, understanding this architecture isn't just academic. It gives you actual tools to learn better yourself.
Okay, let's dive in. The big picture first. The learner's journey. The material starts with a classic model. Fitz and Posner's 3 stages. You've probably heard of it.
It's a good starting framework, even if, as we'll see, real learning is maybe a bit messier.
Right. So stage 1, the cognitive stage. This is all about thinking. You're trying to understand what to do, how to do it. It feels very conscious, like problem solving.
Very effortful, slow, lots of errors.
Oh, yeah, big errors.
Yeah.
And super inconsistent. Remember learning to type, hunting for keys. That's this stage.
Totally. And your brain is just working overtime. That's the cognitive load piece. It's really high here.
You're relying heavily on instructions, feedback from others.
Mm-hmm. Just trying to grasp the basic mechanics.
Then you move into stage 2, the associative stage. Now you've got the basics down, and you're refining the how.
Yeah, you start linking cues to actions. Practice starts to build those connections.
Performance gets smoother, right? More accurate, more consistent, fewer huge mistakes.
And you start noticing your own errors, which is a big step. Less reliant on someone telling you.
The typing example again?
Yeah.
You're faster, maybe still glance down sometimes, but there's a rhythm developing. It's becoming more stable, the retention phase.
Exactly.
And finally, stage 3, the autonomous stage. This is the expert zone. The skill feels almost automatic.
Effortless, pretty much.
Fast, efficient, accurate, adaptable. You're typing quickly while thinking about the content, not where your fingers are.
Minimal conscious thought on the skill itself. That cognitive load for the action is way down.
Which frees up your brain. That's the transfer phase, using the skill easily, even in new situations.
Now, this is where it gets interesting. The source points out, and this is crucial, that this 3-stage model is helpful, but...
It's not always a straight lineup.
Exactly. Learning isn't always linear. You hit plateaus. You might even seem to go backwards sometimes, especially under stress.
Okay, so what are the other ways to think about it?
Well, the material mentions dynamic systems theory, this idea that skill isn't pre-programmed. It emerges from how you, the task, and the environment interact in the moment.
So less like fixed stages, more like adapting on the fly.
Kind of, yeah. It's softly assembled. Then there's ecological dynamics, focusing on perception-action coupling. Learning is about tuning into the environment, the affordances that guide your actions directly.
The environment is part of the skill from the start, not just background noise.
Precisely. And another angle is strategic control versus motor adaptation, like the conscious what-to-do decisions and the more automatic how-to-do-it adjustments. They don't just replace each other, their influence shifts.
You could be deciding where to hit the tennis ball consciously while your swing mechanics are adjusting almost automatically based on past tries.
Exactly. You might be cognitive about strategy, but associative or even autonomous about the stroke itself. So these stages are maybe better seen as shifting dominances of processes.
Which means teaching should probably focus on adaptability early on, not just rote learning.
That seems to be the implication, yeah. Foster that interaction with the environment.
Okay, let's zoom in on those core processes. How do we even start learning something with all the information bombarding us?
Yeah.
Attention.
It's the gateway, right?
It's the mental spotlight.
Yeah.
And crucially, it's limited. You only have so much attention to go around.
Especially when you're starting out.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And the source breaks down different kinds of attention that matter here.
Like what?
Well, there's selective attention, focusing on what's relevant, ignoring distractions. Super important for novices trying to figure out the key cues.
Okay.
Sustained attention, keeping focus over time, like during a long practice session.
Right.
Divided attention, juggling multiple things. Really hard for novices because of the high load, but experts can often do it.
Like driving and talking. Yeah, or a skilled musician reading music while listening to the orchestra. Then alternating attention, switching focus smoothly between different task demands.
And here's the cool part, the material highlights. How you use attention changes as you get better.
Fundamentally, novices are consciously trying to attend to everything. Every movement, every rule. It's exhausting.
Totally. But experts,
For experts, the core skill execution takes very little conscious attention. It's automated. This frees up what's called attentional reserve.
mental space for other stuff.
Exactly. Think of an expert chef chopping vegetables while planning the next steps of the meal. The chopping is automatic, attention is on the strategy. A novice has to focus just on not cutting their finger.
That shift is huge. And it links directly to cognitive load, doesn't it?
Absolutely. High attention demands mean high cognitive load. When a skill becomes automatic and needs less attention, the load drops.
So good instruction guides that novice attention early on, points it to the important stuff, and then lets it shift as they improve.
It makes sense. You manage the bottleneck.
But attention needs input. That's perception, right?
Yeah.
Making sense of all the sensory information, sight, sound, touch, body position.
It's the raw data feed. Understanding the task, the environment, how your body relates to it all.
Like catching that ball? It's not just seeing it. It's trajectory, speed, spin.
Plus, feeling your own body's position, that's proprioception and balance. It's multisensory. The source mentions integrating sight, sound, touch, body senses key. Multisensory training can actually help.
And perception isn't fixed, is it? The material says it improves with practice.
That's perceptual learning. Your brain literally gets better at picking out and processing the relevant sensory info for that skill. Practice can change brain structure and function in perceptual areas.
So you actually learn to see or feel the world differently.
In relation to that skill, yes. And a big part of that is pattern recognition. Experts see meaningful patterns instantly where novices just see noise.
The chess master seeing tactics, not just pieces.
Or the experienced mechanic hearing a subtle engine noise that means something specific. It's rapid perception linked to a huge knowledge base stored in memory.
Ah, so perception and memory work together there.
Definitely. And this ties back to that ecological idea, too. Learning involves tuning your perception to pick up those environmental cues, the affordances, that directly guide what you do.
So training perception is just as important as training the action itself.
It seems so. You need to train what to pay attention to and how to interpret it.
Okay, so where does all this learning get stored? Memory. The blueprint, the filing cabinet, and it's not just one thing,
Right. It's multiple systems working together. The source highlights the key ones.
like working memory.
Yeah, your mental scratch pad. Limited capacity, maybe 3 to 7 chunks of info at a time. It's where you hold instructions, process feedback, juggle ideas right now. Crucial for novices figuring things out.
Chunking helps here, right? Breaking down complex stuff.
Exactly.
Okay.
Then you've got long-term memory, LTM, huge capacity, pretty much permanent storage.
And that splits into,
Declarative or explicit memory, stuff you can consciously recall, knowing that. This includes semantic memory facts, concepts, rules, like the rules of chess.
and episodic memory, your personal experiences, like remembering your first driving lesson disaster.
Yeah. Declarative is big in that early cognitive stage. Lots of rule learning.
But then there's the other kind.
Procedural or implicit memory, knowing how. This is for skills, habits, riding a bike, playing an instrument, typing. It's built up gradually through practice, often unconsciously.
This is the core of automaticity, right?
Absolutely. It takes over in the associative and autonomous stages, and it's generally much harder to forget than facts.
So there's a shift from relying on conscious facts to unconscious procedures as you get skilled.
That's a key part of it. It's how you reduce that cognitive load and make performance fluid. You stop thinking the rules and just do the skill.
How does stuff get into memory? Encoding.
Right. Encoding and storage. Processing instructions, observing, practicing. Strategies like linking new stuff to old stuff, elaborative rehearsal, or using mental imagery help make stronger memory traces.
And getting it out. Retrieval.
Yes, and this is super important according to the source. Retrieval practice. Actively trying to recall information or perform the skill from memory is way more effective for long-term learning than just passively reviewing it.
Like testing yourself.
Exactly. Every time you pull that memory out, you strengthen it. make it more accessible for next time. This applies to procedures too. Executing the skill reinforces it.
What about adapting skills? You don't store every single tiny variation, do you?
That's where schema theory comes in Schmidt's idea. You don't store infinite specific movements, you store generalized motor programs or rules schemas.
Rules for a whole class of movements.
Pretty much. You learn these rules by abstracting information from practice. What were the conditions? What commands did you use? What did it feel like? What was the outcome? This builds a recall schema for planning movements and a recognition schema for evaluating them.
Ah, so that's how experts can, throw a ball a distance they've never thrown before. They adjust the parameters of the schema.
That's the idea.
Yeah.
It explains flexibility and adaptability. So good practice involves variety to build robust schemas, not just repeating the exact same thing over and over.
And testing yourself. Don't forget that.
Definitely. Active retrieval is key.
Okay, skills aren't just memory and perception. You have to choose what to do. Decision-making.
Crucial at every stage, from deciding how to even start learning to those split-second choices experts make.
It's about selecting an action from alternatives. The source mentions it involves, identifying the need, gathering info, weighing options, choosing, acting, reviewing.
A whole cycle. And different brain areas are involved: planning parts, emotional parts, habit parts.
And does decision-making change as you learn?
Big time. In the cognitive stage, decisions are slow, conscious, analytical, often based on explicit rules you've just learned. Very effortful.
Like that beginner chess player, thinking through every possible move based on the rules.
Exactly. Then, in the associative stage, decisions get faster, more refined. You start associating cues directly with good actions, less step-by-step analysis.
And by the autonomous stage.
A lot of the core decisions become intuitive, rapid, almost automatic. Experts often rely on that recognition-primed decision-making. They see a familiar pattern and instantly know the right move.
Like those gut feelings experts talk about.
Yeah, but it's not magic. It's built on that huge library of patterns stored in procedural memory from countless hours of experience. It frees up their conscious mind for higher-level strategy.
So that shift mirrors the memory shift from conscious rule-based to unconscious pattern-based.
Very much so. And again, you see the interplay of strategic control, the conscious goals, what to achieve, and motor adaptation, the implicit system, figuring out how to achieve it efficiently.
So becoming skilled involves learning how to make good choices quickly and appropriately, both consciously and unconsciously.
And practice in varied, realistic situations is likely key to building that rich base for intuitive decision-making.
Okay, we keep mentioning effort and mental work. Let's tackle cognitive load theory head-on. It feels central to all this.
It really is. It's all about that limited working memory capacity we talked about. You can only juggle so much information consciously at one time.
And if you overload it,
Learning stops or becomes incredibly inefficient. CLT basically says learning is about building and automating those schemas in long-term memory, which is vast. The goal of instruction should be to manage the load on working memory to make that schema building happen smoothly.
the source breaks load down into types, right?
Yes. 3 main types. Intrinsic load is just the inherent complexity of the skill or information itself. How many things do you have to keep track of at once?
So learning calculus has higher intrinsic load than learning addition.
Pretty much. Then there's extraneous load. This is the bad load. It comes from poor instructional design, confusing explanations, cluttered slides, making you hunt for information. It taxes working memory but doesn't actually help you learn.
Wasted mental effort.
Exactly. And finally, germane load. This is the good productive load. The mental effort you spend actually processing the information, understanding it, connecting it to what you already know, building those schemas.
So the goal is to minimize the bad extraneous load to free up capacity for the good germane load.
That's the core idea. And here's the really cool part. Cognitive load isn't fixed for a task. It changes as you gain expertise.
How so?
Because of schemas. As you build a schema, say, for driving, it integrates lots of elements, steering, braking, checking mirrors, into a single unit in your long-term memory. When you activate that schema, it only takes up one slot in working memory, even though it represents complex behavior.
Ah, so for an expert, the intrinsic load of driving feels much lower than for a novice who's juggling all those pieces separately.
Precisely. The task itself feels less demanding because your brain is handling it more efficiently through automated schemas.
So load depends on the task, the instruction, and the learner's expertise level.
Absolutely. And that leads to the expertise reversal effect the source mentions. What helps a beginner, like detailed step-by-step guidance, can actually hurt an expert.
Oh,
It forces them to consciously process information they've already automated. It becomes extraneous load for them, getting in the way.
wow. Okay, so CLT isn't just theory. Gives us practical strategies.
Definitely. The source lists several, like activating prior knowledge before introducing new stuff, using work examples for novices to show them the steps, segmenting complex info into smaller, manageable chunks.
Using visuals and words together, effectively dual coding.
Yeah, but being careful not to just be redundant, which adds extraneous load.
Yeah.
Integrating information sources like putting labels right on a diagram instead of in a separate key.
Focusing on one thing at a time initially.
Right. All aimed at managing that precious working memory capacity. The big takeaway is instruction needs to adapt. No one-size-fits-all approach works when cognitive load changes so much with expertise.
Makes total sense. Now, the ultimate goal often feels like automaticity, doing it without thinking.
That's the transition from controlled processing, slow, effortful, conscious, resource-heavy,
The novice experience.
to automatic processing, fast, efficient, effortless, largely unconscious, using minimal cognitive resources.
Like reading for us now, or tying shoes. Or that Stroop test trying to name the ink color when the word is different color shows how automatic reading interferes.
Exactly. The hallmarks are speed, efficiency, usually high accuracy, and the defining feature is reduced attentional demand. It frees up your mind.
And it's largely unconscious, right? You just do it.
Often, yes. And neurally, the source suggests a shift away from conscious control areas like the prefrontal cortex towards areas involved in habits and procedures like the basal ganglia and cerebellum.
So automaticity is the main way the brain slashes cognitive load for a skill.
Absolutely. It makes performing the skill incredibly efficient, mentally speaking.
But there's a catch, isn't there?
There can be. Because it's automatic and unconscious, it can be hard to change or override if the situation demands something different. Rigidity can be a downside.
Like if the road conditions suddenly change and your automatic driving response isn't right.
Exactly. It takes conscious effort to inhibit the automatic response and adapt, sometimes called de-automatization. That's why variability in training is probably important to build flexible automaticity, not just rigid habits.
Okay, we've pulled apart attention, perception, memory, decision-making. But the material stresses, they're all woven together, right? This cognitive tapestry.
Completely intertwined. They don't operate in isolation. It's a dynamic system.
How does that work? Is it like a cycle?
Yeah, you can think of it that way. Your attention directs perception. Perception provides the input for memory encoding. Memory provides the knowledge for decision-making. Decisions guide action. And the outcome of the action provides feedback.
Which then loops back to refine perception, redirect attention, update memory, influence future decisions.
Exactly. It's a continuous feedback loop. And if one part is weak, say, you're not paying attention properly, it affects everything down the line. Perception is off, memory encoding is poor, decisions are bad, learning suffers.
So feedback is like the engine oil for this whole system.
That's a good way to put it. It's critical. You perceive the feedback, it grabs your attention, you compare it in working memory to what you intended, retrieving from memory. You decide how to adjust. Timely, specific feedback fuels that whole refinement process.
The source uses examples like basketball or music.
Yeah. Think about a free throw. Attention on the hoop. Perception of distance. Ball feel. Memory providing the learn and shooting motion. Procedural and maybe strategic knowledge. Declarative. Decision about force and arc. Feedback from the shot. Did it go in? How did it feel? Immediately informs the next attempt. Tweaking all those components.
Or playing music attention on the notes of the conductor. Perception of pitch and rhythm, memory for the melody and fingerings, decisions about dynamics and timing, feedback from the sound produced.
It's the same integrated dance. And for cognitive skills, too, like problem solving or learning a language, attention to details, perceiving relationships, retrieving knowledge from memory, deciding on strategies or words, it's all interacting constantly.
So effective learning environments need to foster this integration, not just train skills in isolation.
That seems to be the message. Practice that reflects real-world complexity helps build that robust, interconnected, cognitive tapestry.
Okay, wrapping this up, we've journeyed through the cognitive mechanics of skill learning. What are the main takeaways from this material?
Well, first, that skill learning is fundamentally about transforming these core cognitive processes: attention, perception, memory, decision-making. It's not just about muscle memory.
And that journey, while it might have stages, is more about shifting dominance and continuous interaction, not neat, separate levels.
Right. There's that crucial shift from controlled, effortful processing to automaticity, driven by the move from declarative to procedural memory and schema development.
And managing cognitive load is absolutely key. Understanding intrinsic, extraneous, and germane load helps design better learning. Skill development is cognitive load reduction for that specific skill.
And finally, these processes are a dynamic system constantly interacting, fueled and refined by feedback.
So the implications for teaching or coaching are pretty significant.
Huge. It points towards applying cognitive load theory principles, minimize the junk load, focus the effort, go beyond simple linear models, encourage exploration and adaptability.
Tailor memory practice, declarative rules early, procedural practice with variation and retrieval later.
Guide attention for novices, challenge it for experts. Train perception, explicitly teach learners what to look for, how to interpret patterns, make feedback timely and actionable.
It's really about using cognitive science to make learning more effective. The source mentions future research looking into individual differences, skill transfer, brain imaging.
Yeah, lots more to uncover.
Wow. Thinking about skill learning this way as this intricate reorganization of your mental software, it really does change how you view your own struggles and successes, doesn't it?
It really underscores how incredibly adaptable our brains are. Every time you learn something, this complex cognitive dance is happening under the hood.
Absolutely. And the material leaves us with a powerful thought.
By understanding these cognitive processes, we not only appreciate the complexity of learning, but we also gain insights into how to learn better ourselves and how to help others learn more effectively.
It's about unlocking potential, really.
Maybe think about something you're learning now. Can you pinpoint where the cognitive load feels high? When did things start feeling more automatic? How did feedback help you adjust?
It's a fascinating lens to view our own lifelong learning journey through. Thanks so much for sharing this material with us for the deep dive. It was incredibly insightful.
My pleasure. Always fascinating to explore how we learn.
Until next time, keep exploring how that amazing brain of yours works.